The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched before Lee Nari like a vast cathedral made of metal and light. 12 different alien species sat in their designated sections, each more strange and terrifying than the last. The reptilian Vextai dominated, the center podium with his massive frame and cold yellow eyes. To his left, the insect-like General Morduck clicked his mandibles in what Nari had learned was a sign of anger. The crystalline beings hummed in harmonics that made her teeth ache. Nari stood at the human delegation table, her hands steady despite the weight of what was happening. Next to her, Ambassador Kang Woo-jin looked older than his 50 years. The stress lines around his eyes had deepened since they arrived at the station 3 days ago. Behind them, screens showed Earth in real time. Billions of people watched this moment, not knowing their entire future hung in the balance. "The evidence is clear," Speaker Vextai announced, his voice booming through the chamber's translation systems. "Humanity represents a clear and present danger to galactic peace. They are a species born from violence, shaped by conflict, and driven by conquest." The screens around the hall lit up with images that made Nari's stomach turn. Wars throughout human history played in loops, nuclear weapons exploding, cities burning, soldiers fighting in trenches. But something was wrong with these images. They had been changed, edited to look worse than they really were. The peaceful moments, the art, the medicine, the cooperation, all of it was missing. "These are not complete records," Nari said, standing up. Her voice carried clearly through the hall's acoustics. "You're only showing one side of human history." "General," Morduck's multiple eyes fixed on her. "Silence, human. You will speak only when given permission." Ambassador Woo-jin placed a gentle hand on her arm, but Nari shook her head. "Someone had to speak the truth even here, even now. With respect, General, my species has sent me here to represent them. I won't be silent while you spread lies about my people." A ripple of surprise went through the alien delegations. Several species that rarely spoke to each other began chattering among themselves. The crystalline beings' humming grew louder. Speaker Vextai raised a clawed hand for silence. "Very well, human. You may speak. Tell us why your species should not be contained or eliminated for the safety of the galaxy." Nari stepped forward, feeling the weight of billions of eyes on her through the broadcast feeds. She thought of her sister Park Ji-won back on Earth, probably watching this moment from their childhood home in Seoul. She thought of her former professor, Dr. Yoon Min-ho, who had taught her that truth was worth any price. "You call us violent," she began, her voice growing stronger. "But you forget that violence and strength are not the same thing. Yes, humans have fought wars. We've made terrible mistakes, but we've also created beautiful things. We've written poetry that moves people to tears. We've composed music that speaks to the soul. We've developed medicine that saves lives across species barriers." She gestured to the screens, where the alien propaganda still played. "These images don't show you the human doctors who work 18-hour shifts to save lives. They don't show you the teachers who spend their own money to buy supplies for poor children. They don't show you the artists who create beauty in places where none existed before." "Pretty words," General Morduck clicked. "But your species, aggression is in your very DNA. You evolved from predators." "So did many of you," Nari replied calmly. "The difference is that we learned to channel that aggression into protection and progress. When disaster strikes Earth, humans don't run away. They run toward the danger to help others. When we see injustice, we fight to fix it. When we see suffering, we work to end it." The Vextai leaned forward on his podium. "And what of your weapons? Your nuclear arsenal could destroy entire worlds." "We created those weapons during a time of fear and misunderstanding," Nari admitted. "But we also created the treaties that control them. We built international laws to limit their use. We chose cooperation over destruction. That's not the action of a mindlessly violent species." She walked closer to the center of the hall, ignoring the way some aliens shifted nervously at her approach. "You want to judge humanity by our worst moments, but judge yourselves by your best intentions. That's not justice, that's fear." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Several alien delegates began talking at once, their translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping conversations. "Fear?" Speaker Vextai's voice turned dangerous. We fear nothing from a primitive species that has barely learned to leave its own star system. Then why are we here? Nari asked. If we're so primitive and harmless, why gather the entire Galactic Council to discuss us? Why spend months preparing this trial? Why doctored evidence and biased presentations? The hall fell silent. Even the HFY background humming from the crystalline being stopped. Ambassador Wu Jin stood up beside her, his face pale but determined. Speaker Vextai, my colleague raises valid points. If this council truly seeks justice, then all evidence should be presented fairly. Justice? General Morduck laughed, a sound like breaking glass. This is not about justice. This is about survival. Your species threatens the order we have built over millennia. What order? Nari demanded. You mean the order where species like yours decide who deserves to live free and who deserves to be caged or killed? We've seen that kind of order before, on Earth. We've fought wars to end it. The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. The alien delegates were no longer just watching, they were studying her, like scientists examining a dangerous specimen. Perhaps, Speaker Vextai said slowly, it is time this human learned the cost of such defiance. Nari felt a chill run down her spine, but she didn't step back. Around the hall, mechanical arms began extending from hidden panels in the walls. Security drones hummed to life. The lighting shifted to a harsh red that made everything look like it was covered in blood. The vote has already been taken, General Morduck announced. Humanity will be contained, but first we will demonstrate what happens to species that refuse to accept their place in the galactic order. Ambassador Wu Jin moved to stand in front of Nari, but she gently pushed past him. If this was how it ended, she would face it standing, up speaking truth until her last breath. Then you'll have to demonstrate it on someone who won't stop fighting for her people, she said. The mechanical arms reached for her, and Nari closed her eyes, thinking of Earth, of Jiwan, of every human who had ever refused to surrender in the face of impossible odds. The mechanical arms grabbed Nari with surprising gentleness, but she knew this was only the beginning. They lifted her toward the center of the hall, where a chair made of the same crystalline material as the humming aliens rose from the floor. The moment they placed her in it, energy fields locked around her wrists and ankles. This device was created by the Keth Mori, Speaker Vextai explained, gesturing toward the crystalline beings whose humming had grown more intense. It reads neural pathways and amplifies pain signals directly to the brain. Very efficient, Ambassador. Wu Jin was shouting something, but the sound dampeners around Nari's chair made his words unclear. She could see his face, though, twisted with anguish and helpless rage. Behind him, other human delegates were being held back by security drones. The interesting thing about this device, General Morduck clicked as he approached, is that it doesn't actually damage the body. The pain exists only in the mind. Some species break within minutes, others last hours. Let's see how long human defiance really lasts. The first wave hit her like lightning made of pure agony. Every nerve in her body screamed at once, telling her brain that she was being burned, frozen, crushed, and torn apart all at the same time. Nari's back arched against the chair, and a sound escaped her throat that she didn't recognize as her own voice. But when the wave passed, she was still there. Still whole. Still Nari. Impressive, one of the aliens murmured. Most species lose consciousness during the first application. Increase the intensity, General Morduck ordered. The second wave was worse. Much worse. It felt like someone was peeling her skin off with hot knives while acid ate through her bones. But somewhere in the middle of the pain, Nari remembered something Dr. Yoon Minho had told her during her medical training. Pain is just information, he had said. It tells you something is wrong. But it can't actually hurt you unless you let it. When the wave ended, she was still conscious. The aliens around her chair were chattering excitedly, pointing at readouts on their devices. Her neural patterns are unlike anything we've recorded, one of them said. She's processing the pain but not allowing it to overwhelm her cognitive functions. Then we'll try a different approach, Speaker Vextai decided. Add psychological pressure to the physical stimulation. The chair began projecting images directly into Nari's mind. She saw Earth burning. She saw her sister Jiwon screaming as alien ships destroyed Seoul. She saw Ambassador Woojin being tortured in another room. She saw every human she had ever loved dying in horrible ways. The pain came again, stronger than before, but now accompanied by the most terrible grief and fear. This was worse than physical agony. This was designed to break her spirit, to make her believe that everything she fought for was already lost. But Nari had grown up in Seoul, where her grandmother had told her stories of the Korean War, stories of people who endured unimaginable hardships and never gave up hope. Her grandmother had survived because she remembered that even in the darkest times, tomorrow might be different. "These are lies," Nari gasped out between waves of agony. "You're showing me lies." The aliens increased the intensity again. Hours passed. Nari lost count of how many times the waves of pain crashed over her. Sometimes she screamed. Sometimes she bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood, but she never begged them to stop. Instead, she began to recite poetry. First in English, then in Korean. Old poems her grandmother had taught her, about mountains that endured storms and flowers that bloomed after the harshest winters. Her voice was rough and broken, but the words kept coming. "What is she doing?" one of the aliens asked. "She's maintaining cognitive function through rhythmic speech patterns," another replied. "It's a primitive but effective resistance technique. Make it stronger," General Morduck commanded. They did. The pain became so intense that Nari's vision went white. She could no longer feel her body as separate from the agony, but somehow the words kept coming. When she ran out of poems, she started reciting medical textbooks. When she ran out of textbooks, she began talking about her childhood, about her sister, about every beautiful moment she could remember. The aliens were getting frustrated. She could hear it in their voices, though their words seemed to come from very far away. 6 hours, one of them reported. "No other species has maintained consciousness for more than 2 hours at this intensity. Her brain activity is actually increasing," another said, sounding amazed. "The pain is somehow making her more focused, not less." "This is impossible," General Morduck clicked angrily. "Increase the psychological pressure. Show her the real footage from Earth." The images changed. Now Nari saw genuine scenes from Earth, but they weren't scenes of destruction. They were scenes of normal life. Children playing in parks, couples holding hands, scientists working in laboratories, artists creating beauty, farmers growing food, teachers educating the next generation. "You think this will weaken her resolve?" Speaker Vextai asked. "Watch," General Morduck replied. But the images had the opposite effect. Seeing the real Earth, the real humanity she was fighting for, gave Nari new strength. Even through the waves of unimaginable pain, she smiled. "Beautiful," she whispered. "They're also beautiful." The aliens stared at their readouts in confusion. Instead of breaking down, the human was somehow becoming more resilient. "Her neural pathways are adapting," one of them reported. "She's developing new connections in real time. The pain is triggering some kind of evolutionary response. 7 hours. 8 hours. Nari's body was still locked in the chair, but her mind had found a place beyond the pain. She thought about every human who had ever faced impossible odds and kept going anyway. Every person who had chosen love over hate, hope over despair, truth over comfortable lies. She was still conscious when her heart finally stopped. The monitors around the chair began screaming alarms. The pain device automatically shut down as Nari's body went limp. The energy fields released her, and she slumped forward in the chair. "Finally," General Morduck said with satisfaction. 6 hours and 17 minutes. Longer than expected, but still proof that humans are as fragile as any other species. Speaker Vextai nodded. "Begin broadcasting the final verdict to Earth. Their representative's failure proves that humanity cannot withstand the pressures of galactic civilization." But even as they spoke, something strange was happening. The monitors that had gone silent were beginning to show faint activity again. So faint that at first no one noticed. Ambassador Wu Jin, still held by security drones, was staring at Nari's motionless form with tears streaming down his face. He was the first to see her chest rise slightly, then fall, then rise again. "Wait," he said quietly. The aliens were too busy celebrating their victory to hear him. But Nari's heart was starting to beat again. The medical monitors began beeping softly at first, then more insistently. The crystalline beings were the first to notice, their harmonic humming shifting to a discordant pattern that spoke of confusion and alarm. "The devices must be malfunctioning," General Morduck said dismissively, not bothering to look at the readings. "Prepare the final announcement to Earth. Tell them their representative died defending a lost cause." But Commander Choi Seung-ho of Earth Defense Force, watching from his command ship in Earth's orbit, was staring at bio readings that made no sense. "Dr. Han Sumin," he called to the xenobiologist on his crew. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Han leaned over the console, her eyes widening. "That's impossible. Her cellular activity is increasing, not decreasing. It's like her body is healing itself from the inside out." Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Wu Jin pointed with a shaking hand at Nari's still form. "Look at the monitors," he said loudly enough for the translator to pick up his words. Speaker Vextai turned impatiently toward the chair, ready to dismiss another human protest. His yellow eyes focused on the medical readouts, and his massive, reptilian form went very still. Heart rate 60 beats per minute and rising. Brain activity, normal and increasing. Cellular regeneration, active. Status, alive. "Check the equipment," he ordered the Kethmori technicians. "Something is wrong with your torture device." The crystalline beings swarmed around their instruments, their humming becoming more frantic. After several minutes, their lead technician spoke in harmonics that the translator struggled to convert. "The equipment is functioning perfectly. Readings are accurate. The human female is showing vital signs." "That's impossible," General Morduck clicked, his compound eyes reflecting the monitor's glow. "We watched her die. Her heart stopped for over 40 minutes. As if summoned by his words, Nari's eyes opened. She sat up slowly, like someone waking from a deep sleep. Her movements were steady, controlled. The burns from the energy restraints had healed completely. Even her clothes, which had been damaged during the torture, looked somehow restored. The entire council chamber fell silent. 12 different species, each representing thousands of years of advancement and knowledge, stared at a dead human who was very clearly alive. Nari looked around the chamber with clear, calm eyes. When she spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "You should have studied us more carefully before you decided to judge us." General Morduck scrambled backward, his multiple legs clicking against the floor. "Impossible. No species can reverse death. The biological functions cease permanently when the brain is deprived of oxygen for more than what your species can survive?" Nari interrupted, standing up from the chair. "You're making the same mistake you've been making all along. You're assuming that humans are like you?" Speaker Vexitai's forked tongue flicked out nervously. "What are you?" "I'm human," Nari said simply. "This is what humans do when you push us past our breaking point. We don't just survive, we adapt." She walked toward the center of the chamber, and every alien delegate leaned back instinctively. Even the security drones seemed uncertain about how to respond to someone who had just returned from the dead. "The pain you put me through triggered something in my body that most humans never experience," Nari explained. "It's not magic, it's not technology, it's evolution. When we face absolute extinction, when there's no other choice, our bodies can do things that shouldn't be possible." Dr. Han, still monitoring from Earth's orbit, was furiously taking notes. "Commander, her cellular structure is completely changed. She's generating new neural pathways, enhanced muscle fiber, improved bone density. It's like she's becoming a more advanced version of human." "But death is final," one of the Alien Council members protested. "No living thing can reverse the cessation of biological functions." "Death is final for your species," Nari corrected. "Humans evolved differently. We survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars, Natural disasters that wiped out most other life on our planet. We didn't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by refusing to give up even when everything said we should. She gestured to the screens that still showed the propaganda images of human conflicts. You see violence in our history, but what you're really seeing is a species that will fight against impossible odds to protect what we love. We'll die for our families, our friends, our beliefs, and sometimes when the stakes are high enough, we'll even come back from death to keep fighting. Ambassador Wu Jin was staring at her with a mixture of awe and terror. Nari, how do you feel? Are you still you? She smiled at him, and for a moment she looked like the young woman who had walked into the chamber that morning. I'm still me, Ambassador. I'm just more me than I was before. The aliens were frantically consulting their databases, their instruments, their medical experts. Nothing in their collective knowledge could explain what they were witnessing. This changes everything, Speaker Vextai said slowly. If humans can survive death? Not all humans, Nari said. Not under normal circumstances. This only happens when we're pushed beyond every limit, when we're facing total extinction with no hope of escape. It's our body's last, desperate attempt to survive. Most humans go their entire lives without ever experiencing it. But it's possible, General Morduck whispered. For your entire species, it's possible. Yes, Nari said. And now you know why you should have been more careful about how you treated us. The implications hit the Council like a shockwave. A species that could potentially return from death was not a species you wanted as an enemy. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted completely. What do you want? Speaker Vextai asked. What I've always wanted, Nari replied. For humanity to be judged fairly, based on truth instead of fear. For us to be allowed to take our place in the galactic community as equals. And if we refuse? Nari's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made every alien in the chamber step back. Then you'll discover what humans are really capable of when we have nothing left to lose. The chamber fell silent again, except for the soft humming of the monitors that tracked the vital signs of a dead woman who had chosen to live. News of Nari's return spread through the galactic communication networks faster than light itself. On Earth, Professor Oh Tae-hyun sat in his laboratory at Seoul National University, staring at data streams that defied every law of biology he knew. Around the world, humans were gathering around screens, watching their representative stand before beings who had just tortured her to death. But Nari was different now. As she moved through the council chamber, her steps were more precise, her movements more controlled. Her eyes tracked multiple conversations simultaneously, and when she spoke, her words carried a weight that made the universal translators struggle to convey the full meaning. You want to understand what just happened, she said, addressing the silent council. Let me help you. Humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved under constant existential threat. While your species developed in stable environments, with predictable challenges and gradual advancement, humans had to adapt or die every single day. She gestured to a holographic display that materialized in the air above her. Images of Earth's history began playing, but these were not the edited propaganda the aliens had shown earlier. These were real scenes of human development. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, asteroid impacts that destroyed entire ecosystems, plagues that killed half our population. We didn't just survive these things, we became stronger because of them. The display showed early humans, huddled around fires during brutal winters, sharing food when resources were scarce, working together to build shelters and tools. Every other species in this council achieved spaceflight through cooperation and peaceful development, Nari continued. You built your civilization slowly, carefully, with plenty of time to solve problems. Humans developed faster than light, traveled during a global war because we needed to reach other planets before we destroyed our own. General Morduck's mandibles clicked nervously. You're saying your species' aggression is what made you advanced? I'm saying our species' desperation is what made us adaptable, Nari corrected. We don't fight because we love violence. We fight because we refuse to let the people we love suffer. That's a very different thing. Ambassador Song Yunji, watching from the Mars colonies, felt something stirring in her chest. A warmth, a strength she had never experienced before. Around her, other human colonists were reporting the same sensation. Something was changing in their bodies, responding to what they were seeing on the broadcast. The torture you subjected me to was designed to break my will, Nari explained to the council. But human will doesn't break the same way yours does. When you push us to our absolute limit, when we have nothing left to lose, our bodies trigger a response that goes beyond normal survival instincts. The holographic display changed to show neural pathway diagrams, cellular structures, biological systems that the aliens recognized but had never seen configured in such a way. We call it the impossible choice response, Nari said. When a human is faced with the choice between giving up and doing something that should be impossible, our biology chooses impossible. Our brains rewire themselves in real time. Our cells begin repairing damage faster than it can accumulate. Our bodies literally refuse to accept defeat. Dr. Kim Hyunwoo, monitoring from Earth's primary research station, was frantically recording everything. The cellular changes are spreading through our population, he reported to Director Bae Sunwoo. Humans who watch the broadcast are showing enhanced reflexes, improved healing rates, increased neural activity. It's like her transformation triggered something in all of us. How many others can do what you did? Speaker Vextai asked, his voice carefully controlled. Every human, Nari replied simply. Under the right circumstances. When the stakes are high enough, when we're protecting something that matters more than our own lives, any human can access this response. The chamber erupted in worried discussions. The crystalline being's harmonics became so discordant that several species had to block their auditory receptors. The reptilian delegates were hissing in their ancient language. Even the peaceful ethereals were glowing with agitation. You're saying, one of the council members ventured, that humanity is a species of potential. What would you call them? Super soldiers? No, Nari said firmly. We're a species of protectors. The enhancement only activates when we're defending something important. You can't trigger it through aggression or conquest. It only works when we're facing extinction in service of something greater than ourselves. She walked closer to General Moore Duck, who tried to back away but found himself frozen by her gaze. You tortured me to prove that humans were weak. Instead, you proved that we're stronger than you imagined. But more importantly, you proved that we're willing to die for our principles. And now you know that death might not stop us. Captain Lim Yojin, commanding Earth's first deep space exploration vessel, felt the change hit her like a wave of energy. Her vision sharpened, her reflexes accelerated, her mind became clearer than it had ever been. All across the ship, her crew was experiencing the same transformation. It's not just happening to humans who watch the broadcast, she reported to Earth. It's happening to humans throughout the solar system, as if the knowledge that we can do this is enough to awaken the ability in all of us. Back in the council chamber, Nari was systematically dismantling every argument the aliens had made against humanity. You said we were too violent for galactic society, but which species here has ever willingly faced extinction to protect strangers? Which of you has ever chosen to die rather than betray your principles? Silence. You said we were too primitive for advanced civilization, but we went from horse-drawn carts to faster-than-light travel in less than 2 centuries. How long did it take your species to achieve the same advancement? More silence. You said we were a threat to galactic peace, but the only threat we represent is to those who would harm the innocent. We don't conquer for resources or territory. We fight to protect those who can't protect themselves. She turned to address the entire council, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. You brought me here to judge humanity. Instead, you've revealed what humanity truly is. We're not the most advanced species in the galaxy. We're not the most peaceful. We're not the most intelligent. She paused, letting her words sink in. We're the most necessary. Because in a galaxy full of species that have forgotten how to fight for what's right, someone needs to remember. Someone needs to be willing to pay any price to protect what matters. The transformation was accelerating on Earth. Humans everywhere were discovering that they could run faster, think clearer, heal quicker than they ever had before. It wasn't permanent. The enhancement would fade when the immediate threat passed. But the knowledge that it was possible, that humans could transcend their limitations when necessary, changed everything. "What do you want from us?" Speaker Vextai asked again. "Recognition," Nari said. "Not just of our right to exist, but of our role in this galaxy. You need us more than you want to admit, because someday something will threaten this peaceful civilization you've built. And when that day comes, you'll need someone who remembers how to fight back." The council chamber fell silent as the implications of her words settled over them like a shadow. Somewhere in the depths of space, ancient enemies were stirring. And for the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a species that could meet them without fear. The vote was unanimous, though it took 3 hours of heated debate to reach it. One by one, each species on the Galactic Council formally withdrew their objections to human membership. But more than that, they offered humanity something unprecedented: a seat on the High Council, with full authority over galactic defense matters. Nari stood at the great window of Nexus Prime, watching Earth's blue marble turn slowly in the distance. Behind her, Ambassador Wu Jin was coordinating with Director Bei Sunwoo on Earth, planning humanity's integration into galactic society. The transformation she had triggered was stabilizing across the human population, leaving people enhanced, but not fundamentally changed. "The medical readings are remarkable," Dr. Han Suman reported from her research vessel. "Enhanced humans are showing improved reaction times, accelerated healing, increased cognitive function, but it's not permanent. The enhancement fades after 48 hours unless triggered again by extreme circumstances." Nari nodded. She could feel the power flowing through her own body starting to ebb. Soon she would be just Lee Nari again, a young woman from Seoul who had accidentally changed the course of galactic history. But the memory of what she had done, what humans could do, would remain. "Incoming transmission from the Outer Rim," Captain Lim Yojin announced from her position near the galactic edge. "Multiple unknown signatures approaching at high speed. They're not responding to communication attempts." Speaker Vextai appeared beside Nari at the window, his massive form moving with surprising quiet. "We've been expecting this," he said. "The Devourers have been dormant for 3,000 years, but our intelligence suggested they were stirring again." "Devourers?" Nari asked. "A machine intelligence that consumes entire civilizations," the speaker explained. "They were the reason the Galactic Council was formed originally. Every species banded together to fight them off. We succeeded, barely, but at enormous cost. Trillions died. Through the communication channels, reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Massive ships, dark and angular, emerging from the void between stars. They attacked without warning, without communication, consuming everything in their path." "How did you fight them before?" Nari asked. Speaker Vextai's yellow eyes dimmed. "Sacrifice. We threw everything we had at them. Entire fleets, whole planets, countless lives. In the end, we managed to drive them back into deep space, but only because they chose to retreat. We never actually defeated them." On Earth, Professor Oh Tae-hyun was coordinating with research stations across the solar system. "The enhancement effect is spreading," he reported to anyone who would listen. "Not just to humans who witnessed the broadcast, but to humans who heard about it secondhand. It's like the knowledge itself is contagious." Nari felt something stirring in her chest again. Not the desperate fury that had brought her back from death, but something calmer and more focused. Around the station, human crew members were stopping what they were doing, looking up as if they had heard a distant call. "It's starting again," she said quietly. "What's starting?" Speaker Vextai asked. "The response. Humans across the galaxy are sensing the threat. Our bodies are preparing for another impossible choice." The first battle reports came in an hour later. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. They adapted to every weapon fired at them, absorbed energy attacks, and seemed to learn from each encounter. The combined fleet of 3 species had been destroyed in minutes. "Traditional tactics won't work," General Morduk admitted reluctantly. "They evolve too quickly. By the time we develop a strategy, they've already adapted to counter it. Then don't use traditional tactics, Nari suggested. Ambassador Wu Jin joined the group at the window. Earth is mobilizing every available ship, he reported. But Nari, our fleet is tiny compared to what's already failed against these things. Size doesn't matter, Nari replied. What matters is that we're willing to do what others won't. She turned to face the assembled alien delegates. Many of them were the same beings who had tortured her hours earlier, but now they looked at her with a mixture of respect and hope. You asked what humans are, she said. We're the species that runs toward danger when everyone else runs away. We're the ones who fight when the fight seems hopeless, and we're the ones who find ways to win that nobody else would think of. Director Bei Sunwoo's voice crackled through the communication channel from Earth. All human vessels are reporting the same phenomenon. Enhanced reflexes, improved coordination, increased strategic thinking. But there's something else. They're acting like a collective, sharing tactical information instantaneously across impossible distances. Captain Lim Yojin confirmed it from her deep space position. I can sense other human ships, their status, their intentions. It's like we're all connected somehow. Quantum entanglement at a neural level, Dr. Kim Hyun-woo theorized. The enhancement isn't just physical, it's creating a temporary telepathic network among enhanced humans. The implications were staggering. An entire species acting as one coordinated organism, each individual contributing their unique skills to a collective defense effort. This is what we evolved for, Nari realized aloud. Not just individual survival, but species survival. When humanity faces extinction, we don't just become stronger individually, we become something greater than the sum of our parts. The first human ships reached the battle zone 12 hours later. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they moved with perfect coordination. Instead of engaging the Devourer ships directly, they began executing seemingly random maneuvers that made no tactical sense, until the pattern became clear. Each human ship was positioning itself to exploit a different weakness in the Devourer formation. Weaknesses that shouldn't have existed, but were created by the collective actions of ships scattered across light years of space. The humans weren't just fighting the Devourers. They were thinking several moves ahead, setting up strategies that would take hours to execute. Impossible, General Morduk whispered, watching the tactical displays. They're predicting enemy movements with 97% accuracy. How can they know what the machines will do before the machines know themselves? Because, Nari said, feeling the network of human consciousness flowing through her enhanced mind, the machines are logical. They follow patterns. But humans are beautifully, wonderfully unpredictable. The battle raged for 3 days. Human ships danced between massive Devourer vessels, striking at critical points with surgical precision. When one human ship was destroyed, the others instantly adapted, incorporating the loss into their evolving strategy. Most remarkably, the humans weren't trying to destroy the Devourers. They were trying to save them. Life signals detected inside the machine shells, Captain Lim reported. There are biological beings in there, prisoners, or maybe the original creators who lost control of their creations. Of course, Nari breathed. They're not evil machines. They're a species that became trapped by their own technology. The final phase of the battle wasn't a battle at all. Human ships began broadcasting a signal that somehow penetrated the Devourer vessel's shielding. Inside those dark ships, beings who had been enslaved for millennia began to remember who they were. One by one, the Devourer ships powered down. Their true occupants, freed from the machine intelligence that had controlled them, began sending messages of gratitude and wonder. How did they know? Speaker Vexatai asked in amazement. Because that's what humans do, Nari replied, her enhancement finally fading as the threat passed. We don't just fight monsters, we look for the person trapped inside the monster and figure out how to set them free. The galaxy had its protectors, and for the first time in millennia, there was real hope for peace. But more than that, there was understanding. The species of the galaxy finally knew what humans truly were. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but the guardians who would stand between civilization and the darkness, no matter what the cost. Lee Nari, a young woman from Seoul who had died defending her people and chosen to return, had become the catalyst for humanity's true place in the stars. Not as subjects or prisoners, but as the protectors of all life in the galaxy. The human age had begun.